Hey there and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. Come along with our triumvirate of terror as we descend into darkness, hurtle into horror, and plunge into peril. If you've ever stolen something from a hotel room, you're in the right place. I'm Justin, and as the philosopher once said, you could bring your girlfriends and meet me in the hotel room.
Fair play. I'm Nico, and 1738.
Hey. Well, I'm Dan, and I would never lean out the window on the 14th floor of a hotel.
Absolutely the fuck not.
You're right about that, Dan, but why don't you elucidate our listeners? This is the second in our Halloween series for the month of October, and what's the theme for the movies we're covering? What kind of, process are we going through here?
Well, the kind of process we're going through here in this month of October is that we are watching movies that have numbers in the title. And this one doesn't just have a number in the title, a number is the title.
Oh no!
Well, you're darn skippy, because today we're reviewing 1408. This was directed by Jan Mikael Håfström, starring John Cusack as Mike Enslin, Samuel L. Jackson, yes, the famous one, as Gerald Olin, Mary McCormick as Lily, Jasmine Jessica Anthony as Katie, and Tony Shalhoub for all of 1 minute as Sam.
What a wild thing to say, by the way. The famous one, as if, it's 1408 starring, we got John Cusack, and then some other guy named Sam Jackson that no one's ever heard of.
I was hoping you would say the same for Tony Shalhoub, the famous one.
Yeah.
Aw, you guys are just a bunch of goofballs. I promise this episode to not lose my cool. So we open with Mike Enslin, an author who makes a living writing about spooky places. He also surfs in his free time. This may or may not be important later, depending on who you ask. One day, he receives a postcard telling him to not enter room 1408 of the Dolphin, which is a hotel in New York. It's kind of odd, but Mike tries to book the room, but the hotel refuses. Luckily, he works with his editor for about 1 minute, that is the aforementioned Tony Shalhoub, who is then gone.
Shout out to the legend.
And they manage to get the room booked. Mike's editor also asks him during that 1 minute he's in the movie, which is played by Tony Shalhoub, of course, if he plans to speak with Lily. And he wants to make sure that Mike's mental state is okay, as apparently Mike has some kind of history in New York. Mike says he has no plans to, and this is going to be an in and out job. And speaking of
just like
men
Tony
who know
Shalhoub
about
in this movie.
Yes, just like Tony Shalhoub in this movie. I was gonna make a little transition over to you, Nico.
I know
but
you were.
You already did that, so go ahead. Just
Beautiful.
lace me with it.
So Mike gets to the Dolphin, and he's greeted by echolocation, because what's up, motherfuckers? This is Echo the Dolphin. We're not talking about 1408 anymore. Remember this shit? No, he's greeted by the manager, Gerald Olin, who again is played by the famous Samuel
one.
L. Jackson, not just someone who happens to be named Samuel L. Jackson. So Olin insists that Mike please change his mind and not go into the room. And he regales Mike with the room's macabre history, and I'm not talking corn, but instead, namely that 56 people have died in that room. And in that room, nobody lasts more than an hour.
Just like me.
So Tony Shalhoub would have fit right in, and Justin. A maid who went in there even stabbed her own eyes out after spending just moments alone in the room. But Mike remains unconvinced, ever the skeptic, so Olin gives him a bottle of liquor as kind of a, all right, fuck it, you're lost type gesture, takes him upstairs and wishes him good luck.
Speaking of good luck, Dan, I've heard you know a thing or two about good luck. Why don't you tell me what happens next?
Well, luckily, at first, the room is completely normal, if not maybe a little bit hot. However, things begin to change. They begin to heat up even more, if you will, when the radio spontaneously turns on and plays We've Only Just Begun by the Great Carpenters, of course, and a countdown of 1 hour begins. The room begins to subject Mike to increasingly disturbing and terrifying visions and experiences. He sees previous occupants of the room die, and no matter how hard he tries, he just cannot leave the room.
Sometimes it's like that. And also, sometimes...
Great transition.
And also...
For more
Mike...
sagacious commentary, keep listening.
Eventually, Mike also starts to see his wife Lily and daughter Katie. And we kind of find out the backstory because unfortunately, the family has an unhappy ending because Katie dies from illness and Mike just kind of abandons his wife Lily in New York and never look back. No, straight up. He doesn't even like divorce her or anything. He just dips to go get cigarettes or something and just doesn't come back.
He
Until
literally
now,
says,
that is.
I'm going to go get cigarettes, and he's never seen again.
Until now, that is. In a desperation to escape, Mike hits Lily on the well-known Yahoo video chat, and he tells her that she should call the cops to come help him. His laptop then gets kind of short-circuited, and Mike is subjected to even more terrifying experiences in the room, and he begins to theorize about the levels of hell from Dante's Inferno, wondering if he's found himself somehow on those levels. It doesn't last long, though. Nico, tell us what happens after.
So the room turns freezing cold, and Mike believes that he's gonna die. Lily calls him one more time on everyone's favorite chat service, Yahoo Chat. Great name. And says that she's coming to save him. He tries to tell her not to come, but the room generates a fake AI Mike version of himself on the video chat and instead tells her to hurry up, ending the call with a wink back at John Cusack, little devil that he is. The timer from the room now reads as 15 minutes, which is about how long it'll take for Lily to get there. So the room attacks Mike again and fills it with water from a painting. And Mike is then submerged. He awakens in a hospital room with Lily by his bedside, and he's told that he had a surfing accident?
It was important.
Or not, depending on who you ask. Mike is ecstatic that he's no longer in the room, but unfortunately, the whole thing's a falsehood created by the room, and Mike is still inside of it.
Well, Dan is the guy that I would call if I had to get out of a room. So, Dan, how does this movie end?
Hey, Dan, I forgot how doors work.
You turn the knob. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
Actually, it doesn't quite matter. Does it?
What?
Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
it does.
No, it does. You don't lock a door by turning the knob left.
I do.
Bro, you got some kind of fucked up carpentry in your house.
For more on this, we turn to Dan regardless.
See a bonus episode. All right. But with the countdown almost finished, Mike has a conversation with Katie, who again is his deceased daughter, and she dies in his arms. The time ends and Mike gets a phone call telling him that he can relive the last hour over and over again, or he can take the, quote, express checkout, also known as killing himself. The voice on the phone also reminds Mike that his wife should show up soon. Mike decides to take matters into his own hands, and he makes a Molotov cocktail, setting the room on fire. The fire alarm goes off in the Dolphin, and the guests flood into the streets. Mike's wife sends some firefighters up, and they rescue Mike. We then cut to a scene of Olin sitting alone in his office, offering his congratulations to Mike. This version of the movie, more on that later, ends with Mike getting back together with Lily. He plays a recording of his conversation that he had with Katie in room 1408, much to Lily's astonishment. The end.
All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about, so let's get to talking. Dan, what do you think about the audio design in this movie?
I actually really liked the audio. I really loved it. It was really cool. I thought it was interesting because we often hear things from Mike's perspective, which I guess is like kind of what usually happens maybe, but it was cool because there's a point where he loses his hearing and we just hear like silence and like like the ringing you get in your ears sometimes. And there's also a point where does he hear like shouting or something and he just hears it like echo and it becomes this like cacophonous noise. And that was really cool because it felt like it put me more in Mike's shoes. And it kind of made me understand what he was feeling and hearing and seeing and everything. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And we'll touch more on that, I think, when it gets to the visuals as well. I also like the sound. And this is going to sound kind of silly, but there's actually a little bit of meaning to why We've Only Just Begun by the Carpenters keeps playing on the radio. Because at first it's just like, why are they playing this, like, you know, why are they playing the song? But then it comes to realize it's a message. We've only just begun, because the hour will repeat over and over and over again, and basically until you kill yourself.
And
So
it happened at the start of the hour too.
Yes.
Like near the beginning.
yes. So I thought that was a pretty cool kind of twist almost when it played the song and then the timer resets again and it's like, oh shit, I see that now. But Nico, my comrade in arms, I hope you are doing well, sir.
I'm
How do you
trying.
feel about the sound design?
I have nothing but good things to say about it. Dan covered what I was going to highlight, but there's a lot of ambient tension building that I appreciate because there's only so much you can do in a movie that is 90% one room, which we're going to touch on later. But like they did a lot with the space, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that translates over to the visuals as well, because from my perspective, at least, a lot of the movie is also from, I was going to say John Cusack, but Mike's perspective, because we don't get like a lot of full shots of the room. They're always shot from the perspective of Mike a lot of the time. And this allows for like jump scares where things might come from behind Mike and, you know, we couldn't see it. And that's one thing that I often have a problem with in movies is that I call it like the perspective joke or something, because sometimes what filmmakers will do is they'll show you the room not from the perspective of the person, but from a different perspective. And then when a monster sneaks up on the person, it's like, oh my God, they snuck up on them. But it's like, no, they would have seen them.
Yeah.
But this movie doesn't make that mistake because it's from the perspective of the character. So when the character gets surprised, we are also surprised, but it's supposed to be a surprise. And just generally too, I don't know, I am somewhat nostalgic for that, you know, mid to late 2000s kind of fashion that John Cusack's rocking in this movie. And I like the way that the scenes kind of blend into each other. From a hotel room, we stretch out to being really hot, being really cold with like snow on the ground into an ocean. So it's kind of cool. Nico, I'm going to swap back to you here. Uno reverse. What do you think of the visuals?
I liked them a lot. I will say that this movie I don't know how they accomplished this or what the technical details are, but heights are kind of a thing for me. Like if we ever review that one movie where it's just a white girl climbs up a fucking like telephone pole.
Oh, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
You know, like I'm just gonna be an anxious mess the entire episode. And during the scene where Mike is trying to see if he can go out on the outside of the building and like scaffold himself into a different room, that scene where he tripped and almost fell got the just absolute girliest yelp I have ever produced.
Hey.
And I don't know why it was this movie that did it and not like The Descent. Oh, no, The Descent definitely did it too. But anyway, all of that to say, I like what they did with the visuals, especially during the scenes where things are getting a little bit more wild and wacky.
I got to tell you, Nico, I'm probably worse than you when it comes to heights.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm pretty scared of heights. That's why Dan is an asshole. He sent me on a vision quest to climb a mountain.
I did not.
Dan did. For
did
more
that
on that,
yourself.
refer to our bonus episode. But Dan, I'll give you a chance to defend yourself, not on sending someone who's terrified of heights
sure.
to a mountain, but the visuals. What happened there?
Well, I also really liked them. I just thought it was really cool to see how the room was going to transform and see what was going to happen next and how things were going to get kind of all fucked up. And, you know, like when, I guess this is like sort of visuals, but also sort of plot, I guess. But, you know, when Mike would step out of the window to kind of like the scene Nico was talking about and crawl along the window or the windowsill or whatever outside, I thought it was really cool. Like, you know, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
But like you don't know what. And I thought maybe he was going to go to the next window over, but it would still be his room that he's looking in that window or something. But that's not what happened. Like everything, all the other rooms disappeared, and it was really cool to try to guess what was going to happen. And again, I know that's partially plot, but I think the visuals play into that too, just because
Definitely.
it was really cool to see the visual of the room transform to be really cold, like snowscape, or just downpour and being like a thunderstorm in there, or whatever was freaky shit was going to happen next. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, Absolutely. So we've been talking about this room, and we're going to keep talking about this room because this movie is about room 1408. Now, to allude to what Nico said earlier, a lot of this movie is, in fact, one guy in one room. How does that set the mood and the tone for the movie? And do you think that adds or takes anything away from the film?
I thought it added to the film. It was cool to see. There's one part where a plumber comes in to like fix the heat because it's too hot, or I guess fix the AC.
It's more like he comes to the door. He never goes in.
Well, he was supposed to come in.
Yeah.
Or what, yeah. But to your point, yeah, he doesn't actually walk. He doesn't cross the threshold into the room. But, freaky shit has already started to happen a little bit. And we know it's just been John Cusack for a while. So when somebody else comes in, you're like, oh, what's going to happen? Like, are they actually going to come? Yes or no? Are they going to be them when they come, or is it going to be another hallucination? Are they going to try to kill him? Are they going to die? There were so many questions that I had about what was going to happen. And then, I already kind of knew that whenever we saw anybody else, there was a hallucination. But then, when Lily was coming in near the end, you're like, what's going to happen when she gets there? Again, is the room going to kill her? Is she actually going to make it? Was any of that real? Like, what's going to happen? So I thought it was a really cool guessing game that the movie made you play, kind of fucked with your psychology a little bit. And
Right.
In big part because most of the movie was just one dude in one room.
Got you. Nico, how about you?
So there's one thing that I want to latch onto there specifically. It's the scene where Lily is calling him on everyone's favorite video chat service, Yahoo Chat, again, aptly named. They mentioned earlier on in the movie that like electronics seem to
I was going to say that too, yeah.
like seem to not work. And so I was a little bit surprised when that came through because I just assumed that I assumed that none of it was real. I think that it was a little strange that for whatever reason, everything else seems to be, bonkers, off the hook. The room is literally looking like fucking Svalbard, Antarctica, whatever the fuck, cold place, insert name here. And your laptop is literally frozen over. But the Yahoo chat comes through and you're like, yeah, this is totally real. And it was?
Mm-hmm.
I think partially.
Are we sure?
I think partially that was the room trying to get more victims because the point of that call was to get the wife into the room in the first place. So I think that was part of the room working its perverse ways.
So you think it like allowed the call to happen so that
Yeah.
it could then infect the call or whatever?
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
And when they say electronics don't work, I think first off, they were definitely referring to things like laptops, 100% that.
Yeah.
But I think his tape recorder still works because I think they were referring to like non kind of analog devices. But I think like an old school tape recorder with like the actual tapes, I think that's kind of not something the room could control. Or maybe it could and it just wanted a tape for, posterity. I don't know. But the only thing I'll say is I definitely like the one room concept and kind of one person for the majority of it because the point of the room is to break somebody down. That's what it does. Within an hour, it breaks people down and makes them kill themselves. So it makes it that much more personal. Especially when the dude is haunted by his own past. It's like a combination of horror and guilt.
Hilt.
Hilt? Or gore.
I like gore. That's
Gore
cool.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just dig that a lot. But also, right fast, Dan, I got a quick trivia for you. I know you're the trivia master, but here's a piece of trivia.
Yeah.
Not really trivia, more like fact. But aren't facts trivia? Anyways,
Yeah,
this is based on a Stephen King short story.
right.
And we've got here what is ostensibly author of horror, granted not really horror novels, more so horror places, but he writes about scary stuff. Do we consider this a self-insert character? And does he kind of follow the line of Kingian protagonists?
So here's where I'm going to give a bit of a cop-out answer.
Okay.
Deflection. Aside from him being a horror author, like
Right.
Stephen King, I don't really know shit about Stephen King, to be honest. I haven't really read any Stephen King. I mean, of course, we've watched a couple adaptations of his films, but of his books rather. But his books I have not read themselves. I don't know anything about his personality or anything like that. So to be totally honest, I don't really have an opinion on that.
That's fine. I'm going to deflect my question to Nico now. I shot it at you and then deflected it back towards Nico. I'm
wow.
that fast.
Yeah.
Wow,
So, Nico,
you can bend
some,
bullets like in
Wanted.
Angelina Jolie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's exactly how she curved my shot when I tried it.
Oh yeah.
It just went straight to the trash though. But Nico, let me ask you something. You know about Stephen King.
I do.
I know you've read Stephen King books.
I have.
Self-insert or not?
I think he totally is. And I will give a credit to y'all's point about him being more of horror, a listicle kind of author. Because to be fair, I wouldn't consider What Culture to be in the same vein as in, like fucking John Carpenter or something. I'm not trying to make that comparison. But I think the fact that he is an author in his, I don't know, late 30s, early 40s, who's, kind of jaded with a lot of what he does and is just the sheer proximity to so much haunted shit, I feel like makes it more of a self-insert. It's not as egregious as, I don't know if I'm going to get this character's name right, but Howard or whatever in The Unnameable, who is like, nah, dog, this is just H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, but there's a little bit there when I was just like, okay, Steven, okay. Writing what we know, I see.
So I'm actually torn. I'm in the middle, much like dusk is in between kind of
No,
night
it's
and
not.
day.
It's not.
And
Well, okay, it is.
Well,
no,
okay.
no, it's not. It's in between day and night.
it's haters
The
need to
lonely
Day and
chill.
soul.
night.
There we go.
Night. All right. But yeah, so I think that this character is definitely a Stephen King protagonist. Every Stephen King protagonist is like an alcoholic, I swear, bro.
Yeah.
And there's a point where Olin asks him, he's like, you smoke? You want a cigar? No, I don't smoke. You drink? I'm an author. Of course I do. And
that
I
was
like,
the fucking line that did it for me, specifically.
I was like, all right, bro. I see you. But that aside, yeah, I think he does follow a lot of the standard tropes, but I also kind of feel like those tropes help when you're writing characters that are tormented by guilt or characters
Totally.
who have that kind of thing, because oftentimes a lot of these vices go hand in hand with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I can definitely see that.
I think I'm going to posit a new theory that he's not a self-insert, but he's actually modeled after, I mean, look, you said listicles, and I think that's a good point. Top 10 biggest, scariest hotel.
Uh-oh.
I think he's modeled after Chills, bro.
Oh,
He's just Chills.
yo, shout outs to Chills. Yo, Chills will never hear this, but we've been watching Chills since he had the fucked up voice, bro. And
Number 3.
yeah, that was perfect. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So you're right about that, Dan. You might be right about that. But
The random upwards inflection, even when there's not a question.
that's the best part. And I want to know your best parts of this movie. Do you have a favorite scene or hallucination? Like, what was your favorite one?
My favorite one is the one where it looks like they just got a Chucky doll and actually made it into a human being, and it's just like, I'm coming at you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Just because that was so fucking random and I wasn't expecting it. So that caught me off guard. And here's the thing about that. If it tells me you're gonna keep replaying this hour on repeat, all right, bet. Come correct. Next time that happens, I'm gonna swing on a motherfucker. Find
just
out
kick
what
him.
happens. Literally, just kick him.
I guess. Dan, you got a favorite hallucination or scene?
Mine was when he looks out the window not leans out the window, but looks out the window, and he sees somebody across in a different like room across the street, and the guy is like sitting at a desk, like I don't know, smoking a cigarette or something, maybe, I don't know, and he looks and he's like trying to get his attention, waving his arms around, and then the guy across the street starts waving his arms around, and then you find out that it's like mirroring what Mike is doing. I thought that was really cool because the transition from, oh, that's a random person to, oh, that's him was, I thought, seamless, and it caught me off guard too. So I thought that was really cool.
There's also a little bit in the background of that scene when we find out that he's viewing himself. You can see one of the apparitions just like skittering around in the background in one of the windows, and I love when that shit is in the movie where like they leave it in for the people where it's like, did you catch it? Okay, good, you get to keep that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did catch a goof in the movie though.
Did you?
Well, not really a goof, but when he's hanging out the window, the sun is rising behind him.
More of a goof. Yuck.
Oh, so it's after dusk. Okay.
It was interesting because there's no way that was an hour after he checked in the middle of the night.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny. Sorry, I had to bring that up. That reminded me when you told me
We
about
also don't actually know. I mean, I do assume it's actually an hour. But, well, no, because I remember seeing something on the clock that said it was like 8 o'clock or something, 8:05 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But after he checks into the hotel, he spends a lot of time doing other shit before the countdown on the clock starts.
That's true. Yeah.
So it doesn't start like right when he gets there. Like, he does a bunch of shit first. Like, I think the whole like heat, the plumber coming, I don't think the countdown was going on, was it?
No, it didn't
can't
start till
remember.
after the plumber left.
Yeah.
I
So,
don't think.
there was definitely some time before, though your point still absolutely remains. But
Yeah. So, oh yeah, by the way, my favorite scene in the movie is he goes through all this shit and he like manages to maintain his sanity. But I love the scene where it's like, do you want to take the express checkout? And he's like, no. And then he like almost whispers, not your way. And then, cause it's like, I feel like it was the extra taunt of the fact that his wife was coming, and the thing had been kind of like taunting him about the fact that his wife was going to make it to the room. And he was like, fuck that. I'm already dead. I accept it, but you're not getting her. And he just throws and it's also kind of representative because again, like the nonstop drinking was kind of like him, it's associated with his guilt and his past. And he literally lights it on fire and flings it so that he can move past it, cause that's like his way of protecting his wife. I thought that was kind of cool. That was, something that I fuck with. And another thing that I personally kind of fuck with is the ending to this movie. And we'll talk about the multiple endings in a little bit. Dan, Nico, and I, we all watched the same ending, dear listener. And how'd you guys feel about the ending we got? He kind of reunites with his wife and he plays the tape for her and she's like, and he kind of hits a wry smile. And Olin also congratulates him. How'd you feel about that ending?
I didn't like it. I think that I'm gonna be a real fucking downer, but I don't think he ever should have left. I think he should have been stuck there the entire time, and there shouldn't have been a happy ending just to prove the point. But that's just me. I will say though, I have one other issue with the ending, and it's not related to the depths of depravity in my soul or Stephen King or John Cusack's. My problem is with the actual Samuel L. Jackson as Manager Owen.
Oh.
Because when
the famous
Samuel L. Jackson, thank you.
Oh, yes.
My issue is when fucking Mike throws this Molotov cocktail, we cut over to, like 14 floors below. He's just like, well done, Mike. And he's not like, my fucking hotel's gonna burn down? Because we later, in the next minute, get a monologue or not a monologue, but a voiceover from Mike saying, yeah, and later the Dolphin ended up closing, but it was for the best, and General Olin's fine. But you're telling me his immediate reaction isn't like, oh, I'm just out of a fucking job and people are gonna die. No, he's this smug, yes, well done, protagonist-kun. Shoves glasses up. Yes, I see you have solved the riddle of the mystery of this place.
To be fair, I think it's implied that he knows that he managed to burn the room down. Potentially that's why he gave him the alcohol in the first place. Who knows? And also, I think that they said he had to close temporarily. I don't think they were permanently closed. I think that was because they have a sprinkler system. But that room, he fucked up the sprinkler system. So that's why it got caught on fire the way it did.
What?
Yeah.
Water put fire out.
The building got shut down because the sprinklers turned on from
No.
fire?
The building was shut down to repair from the damage from the fire, but it's only a temporary repair. Like, not that much was damaged. It was a temporary closure. They'll be back up.
I mean, all right. Fair enough. I just
I've
would have
been
been
to
a
the
little
Dolphin,
more
bro.
concerned instead of smug deuteragonist coon over in the corner like, ah, yes, the student has become the master.
Well, I mean, think of it like this, man. Maids were getting eaten in the bathroom and shit. So he's probably
Yeah,
thankful
they
they don't have to do those like monthly, let's investigate this room bullshit that they were doing.
Fair,
So-
fair.
There is that,
The famous Samuel L. Jackson is kind of a coward in this movie, though, bro.
kind of.
This
Kind
man won't even get off the elevator, aside from that quote, that time of the month, right?
Yeah.
But he makes his maids and underlings go throughout there.
14
There's
elevator
other people who like
installation,
live
guys.
there, right?
No. Okay.
Like what happens
done.
to Captain goes down with his boat?
sorry.
You know,
Yeah, for real.
if you're gonna make your people do it, you should do that shit too.
Yeah, I thought he should have been a little more involved, personally. But again, that's not the story. But Dan, we talked about one ending. There's 3 others apparently, aren't there?
Yeah, so this film actually has a total of 4 endings,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the release that you watch. Though it seems like most people are going to watch the theatrical release that we described. But there's an alternate version of that, where, like we said at the end, when Mike listens back to the tape recorder and hears Katie's voice on it, Lily acknowledges that and is shocked. Surprise face, Pikachu. In the alternate version of that, she does not acknowledge Katie's voice. So it's like everything else is the same. In the original ending of the movie, that audiences apparently found too depressing, Mike actually dies in the fire,
Yeah.
and Olin tries to give Lily and Tony Shalhoub Mike's possessions, but fails. They refuse to take it for whatever reason. So Olin listens to the recorder and actually sees ghosts and hallucinations of Katie and Mike. And then at the end, we see Mike's ghost looking over the burnt hotel room.
That fucking rules.
Yeah. And then the last version, Mike actually dies in the fire again, except this time Lily and Sam do go through, Tony Shalhoub, go through his possessions. Tony Shalhoub reads the manuscript that Mike wrote in the room while he was there. And then the door slams. Mike's father, the ghost of Mike's father, says, "As you are, I was, and as I am, you will be," which is a quote that he says earlier in the film. So yeah, there's 4 different ones.
So Nico, you got a preference for the one where he dies in the fire
Mm-hmm.
and Sam Jackson hallucinates and stuff. Dan, do you like the one we've got, or do you take one of the other 3?
I do like the one that we've got. I thought it was a good combination of like happy-ish ending, but also like kind of spooky. And I do like the fact that somebody else heard or saw the hallucinations, if you will, or the hallucinations weren't or were real, I guess, of like, Katie actually did say something. She was there. I thought that
Right.
was a good plot point, good ending there. But I also do kind of like the final one where Tony Shalhoub reads the manuscript and then Mike's father says, "As you are, I was, and as I am, you will be." Because I thought that was a really cool quote in general. And it's kind of like a dark foreshadowing. So kind of like is the room, like the room's gone, but is it gone kind of thing? I don't know.
Yeah, well, Dan unlocked a core memory for me there because I now remember I saw this movie in college
Wow.
and I tried to find the other alternate endings and I saw the one with Sam Jackson hallucinating.
The famous.
I completely forgot about that until you reminded me of that, Dan. But yeah, it was me and Bean and some other
Bean
people,
and Bell.
pretty much. But I want to ask now about the what would you do? And this is going to be pretty simple, right? But it's going to require some brain power. I'm going to put you in Olin's shoes, right? And how would you dissuade people from going into room 1408? What would be your plan? You can't just say no, and you can't bar them because you'll catch a lawsuit. So how are you going to stop them from getting into that room?
So I would do one of two things.
Mm-hmm.
First is I wouldn't stop them going into the room because I would have burnt the room down myself.
Real
Second,
shit.
I'm going to take a quick tangent and talk about Boobork Biddy
Okay.
and
Oh my god.
and all of the construction that goes on in New York City.
Right.
And it's a thing. There's like all this scaffolding everywhere. And it's
Right.
actually a big issue now because a lot of companies, like there's like a law or something, I'm going to get this a little bit wrong, but that requires buildings to undergo like certain maintenance and stuff every like certain amount of years. But it's like super expensive for, skyscrapers and everything. So a lot of these companies put out scaffolding to make it look like they're doing the renovations, but they're not.
Yo.
So it's because it's cheaper to rent the scaffolding than it is to
That's
actually
so
do the work.
scummy.
Yes. So literally, like on my like 4-block walk to work, I mean, almost the entire 4 blocks is just scaffolding. Like it's
There's a ton of
fucking
scaffolds in that area,
everywhere.
bro.
That sucks,
So-
man.
I might try to do something similar, where it's like, hey, we need to do renovations or repairs on this room, and just like have it perpetually be renovated, and you can't go in because it's under repair.
Solid. Very New York of you, Dan. Very scummy.
Very Boobork of me.
Yeah.
Nico, you got a suggestion?
I would just like take a shit and put it on the door handle.
That's my answer to everything. Take a shit.
Bro, okay.
Be like, hey, after you, my guy, you want to touch that? Because I don't, and I did that.
Wow. What an
So-
answer.
I would pull, not to put any spoilers in, but I would take a leaf out of the anime Another. And
We got somebody taking a shit. It's somebody else taking a leaf.
While he's having a smoke and she's taking
a shit. And now my stomach is sick.
Close the goddamn door now.
And then that's when they say,
haven't you people
there's someone across the hall, because they say they leave the door open when they're doing
Yeah.
the things in the room. So someone close the, and we've dated ourselves tremendously with these references.
Also, you gotta, don't open that door.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, when someone's taking
Yeah.
a shit, absolutely not.
Or just
It's-
the hotel room not taking a shit.
Yo, can we
Room
talk about how
1408.
our high school bathrooms didn't have doors? That was
Yeah.
fucking wild.
Yeah.
Real talk. No, I had a friend.
Yeah.
He would, to scare people, like when they were like taking a shit, he would turn off the lights and be like,
No,
it's just
that's
Oh,
not
man, I don't
okay,
wanna
bro.
I don't want to say his name. I remember one time, I was taking a piss and all of a sudden the lights cut off from behind me. And I'm like, yo. Too funny.
Not
No, we went to a
today,
wild high
Satan.
school though. We went to a wild high school though. But anyhow, yeah, man. I would maybe try and do a tactic where I make room 1408 no longer room 1408. Like I would try like merging it with a different room and calling it room like 1409 or 1410 or something, and try removing it that way. Or I pull a Kara no Kyokai and I would make a second 14th floor with like a spiral elevator. And so you think you're on the 14th floor in a room 1408, but the real room 1408 is on a floor that we no longer use.
What if it was just some like? So I know there's a zoo in New York. And they got tons of
Yeah.
wild shit there. What if Olin just like whenever someone came up, there's like, I mean, hey, look, that's cool, but we got a whole ass silverback in there. Yeah, I don't want to
They
fuck
don't.
with that.
Yo, disappointingly, the zoo in Central Park, no, they don't have one. They got penguins though.
Well, that's the Central Park Zoo.
Okay. What next zoo
mean-
you have?
The Bronx.
I mean, that's a trek.
But it's also a zoo.
Yeah.
Like
You're right about that.
you're going to Central Park. Like, how much of a zoo do you think you're going to?
I thought it was going to be a rampaging zoo, and I had just missed this for years.
Rampage!
So, not to belabor the point, but let's move on now to the critical review. And I'm going to lead with this. Stephen King said he didn't know how popular the movie was, but he said it was very horrifying. So this movie got props from the horror master himself. So keep that in mind. But now let me ask, what do you think this movie got from critics on Rotten Tomatoes?
I feel like it did pretty good, but not stellar. I'm going to guess a 79.
I'm going to guess 82.
You guys have been so close time and time again, and you are again, no doubts. This movie got an 80% from critics on Rotten
Wow.
Tomatoes. So Nico, you got the winner there, but just barely. The audience was less generous with a 61% approval on Rotten Tomatoes. But fuck the world. What do you think? What do you give this movie?
I'm going to give it an 84. I actually enjoyed it. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was. I had a
All right.
really great time. I actually kind of got a little spooked. I'm not going to lie. I was watching it at like 2 in the morning the other night, and I got a little spooked. It's because I watched the first half Bun Day night, and then the second half on Booze Day night.
Ah,
Booze Day.
And I got a little spooked in the first half, not going to lie.
yeah. I think that for me, I actually put this right at an 88. I thought this was relatively spooky. And this is one of the few movies I think that actually, like, I wasn't like terrified, but there are parts I was like, oh shit. Oh shit. Like, I liked it. I liked it a lot because it's rare nowadays for me to get that kind of feeling from a movie. But Nico, where you at with it?
I'm also going to give it an 84. I had a really good time with this. My managerial style complaints aside, directed towards Mr. Olin. I think this is a really good movie, and they do a lot with what they have. I'm really curious to read the short story now, and it is, I think, rare that a movie will make me feel that way about something.
And I wanted to wait until hearing you guys score before saying this, but one thing I thought was interesting is that there are a number of jump scares in this film.
Yes.
And I wanted to hear what we rated it because generally we don't really like jump scares that much. But I thought they were good jump scares and that they made sense in the context of the movie. It wasn't
Yeah,
a jump scare
definitely
to
agree.
be a jump scare. It's what would have happened or what did happen and what Mike would have seen, to my earlier point of like, from a lot of it was from his perspective. So I just thought that was interesting. This was a movie with a lot of jump scares that we actually liked.
No,
You're
I
absolutely
definitely
right.
agree with that. It's like the jump scares serve to add character to the room and depth to the terror instead of just being scary for scary's sake.
Yeah. And also, they're so much better than the ones in, not to pick on it, but Insidious, where like, oh no,
Yeah.
a little kid on a swing. Bring! Like, you'll get like the squealing orchestra. And then I'm like, bruh, come on, man. And in this one, like, yo, one of the best jump scares in this one was when he was doing the scene Dan liked, where he's like waving his hands about and seeing the guy across. And then he holds the light to his face to see what the other guy on the other street looks like. And then all of a sudden he looks across the street and he sees someone getting ready to attack the
Yeah.
guy in that room. And then someone attacks him in this room.
Yeah, that was
And it's
sick.
so awesome because everything is from Mike's perspective. So it's like, oh shit. And that's why I love it a lot. But you're right, Dan. You're right. Now, we're obviously going to recommend this movie because we all put it in the 80s.
Yeah.
But does this get the golden seal?
I'm going to say no. It's close, but not quite for me.
I'm with Nico there. Very close for me.
Very close for me as well, but not quite. So this doesn't get the golden seal, but we do recommend it. So definitely check it out. And if you agree or disagree with anything we've said, hit us up. We're on Twitter and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. That's Don't Open That Door. Plus, you can check out everything we've done on our website, which is, of course, dotdhorror.com. But till then, keep yourself safe. Make sure you check out the reviews for any hotels you plan on staying at.
And rate our shit 5 stars, please. We love you. Thanks. Bye.
And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.